right, welcome back to 2018. It's Joe Solari here in Chicago.
And Craig Martell in the subarctic.
And welcome back to the business of writing. And today's topic is going to be planning. So before we get into that, maybe Craig, you could give us a little update on what you've been up to with your hopping around the Pacific and planning all your conferences.
Oh, you bet. We went to Australia, went down under because my son married a beautiful young lady from Adelaide. While down there, we got to meet a number of authors. We did a $20 Australia luncheon, and the 3 hours I planned became 4 hours, and it was a great time. We were squeezed into a small room. It was very hot, but what great authors, what a great time we had talking about publishing, self-publishing, and just various things. And some of those people hadn't met each other, even though, because Australia is a huge place. It's not, hey, you're from Australia. Do you know so-and-so?
Well, there's only 21 million people.
Yeah, and it's only the size of the United States. It's a continent, for Pete's sake. But so they got to meet and network, which is what that's about. We went to New Zealand, had just a couple people for a 20 books luncheon there because we were on the South Island. I guess the North Island is the more populous. But
yeah,
so had some good conversations there. But coming up is 20 Books London, which is going to be Runnymede on Thames, which is almost London, but close enough because it's close to Heathrow, which works for me because I have the infamous flight over the North Pole. I'm flying from Seattle direct to Heathrow. So after that, get in at like 10 in the morning. A shout out to Sam Livey for she'll be picking me up and dropping me off at the hotel. We'll do a quick walkthrough, and hopefully everything will be set up and run smoothly. We have an all-star cast of presenters and talk about all different kinds of things. And plus, that conference, just like Vegas, will be live streamed and the videos archived. So
who's going to be speaking at this one?
We've got me and Michael Anderle, of course. We've got Andrew Dobell will join me talking about blurbs, covers, and the integration of getting that reader from a browser actually into your book. We'll take a look at some of the covers and blurbs from people in the audience. Hey, give us your book. Let's analyze it. This group of 150 people. Barry Hutchinson will talk about bootstrapping, which is he did all of his covers himself. He did everything himself to minimize his costs as he got into this self-publishing venture. Now, he's been in the TradPub world for a while, but he went his own way for the Space Team series, which has been wildly successful. And he's going to talk about bootstrapping. Felina Hopkins is going to give the keynote speech on the first day, and about motivation, about how overcoming obstacles and addressing your demons, facing your demons. We've got Martha Carr, who's going to talk about world building. I know her talk on rapid launch, rapid release in Vegas was very popular. Mark Dawson will be there and talk about some of his things about advertising and building a newsletter list. Derek Murphy is the newsletter master, so he's going to talk about list building. We've got, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget people, and then everybody's going to be mad at me, and there'll be chaos in the streets. So we have a good cast of presenters. Well, Abby Lynn Knorr is going to talk about 40 days to 4 figures, because when she did her very first book launch, she did it very methodically, and within 40 days, she was making over $1,000 a month. So
cool. Well, and I would just add, from after actually being at the Vegas conference, that as awesome as the presentations are, the ability to meet other authors and network and just learn from each other and set up those relationships for when you get home is a pretty big deal. I think that, that conference, there was a lot of pretty magical stuff that happened out in the halls and over breakfast. And
yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other, Michael Cooper is going to talk.
Oh, yeah.
He has an hour block to talk about Facebook ads.
Okay. So he'll only get through about a third of what he knows.
Well, he squeezed all of that into 45 minutes, but he talked very, very quickly. Yeah. So he'll talk that quickly, but for a full hour.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. No, that's great. I think he's got some really good stuff. All right. Well, bringing in the new year, and it's time to talk about planning. Of course, you should be actioning your plan now, not figuring it out. But for some of us, we start a little bit late. So I thought we'd talk about that and kind of make sure we're all level set with planning. And the reason I bring it up is, you and I were talking earlier, we're not competing with other authors. We're competing in this marketplace that's getting bigger and bigger, and there's more places for customers to go look for books, right? So if you don't have a plan, how you're seen in that market can be impacted. And more importantly, because all of us really tend to work alone, like it's a way to keep us on task, right? Especially creatives, they tend to, always have more good ideas and want to rush to the next butterfly. And, just if you can stop yourself from chasing those butterflies with some tools, that's going to make you more productive. What do you think?
I think the challenge is creating two different personas. Your creative persona, where you write and produce, tell a great story, and then your business persona that looks at that story as a product that you then publish. If you publish it, it's a product once it's out there. It can be your baby, and it can be the most beautiful thing ever. And put on your business hat. It's a product now. You have to get people to buy it. So you've got to hawk the wares. You've got to be out there banging the drum and getting people to see. Look at how beautiful my baby is, and you really want to read this, and you're going to just sell your baby. So if you think of it as your baby and not a product, you're going to have a real hard time with that, especially when you get those nice 1-star reviews and criticism of your baby. Put on your business hat and say, this is a product. I do have typos. Let me fix those and upload a new copy. And keep banging that drum. Hey, look at this. Look at these reviews. Look at this. Hey, it's only 99 cents this week because there's books 2, 3, 4 out, and doing those things. But it is so critical to be able to put on that business hat. If you are incapable of separating your thought process to a business mindset, then you're going to have big problems with self-publishing. And maybe the route is traditional publishing, but you're going to pay somebody else an awful lot to do something that is easy. The business part is not that hard. It has a lot of moving parts, but damn, you'll get 10 cents on the dollar for revenue. And you can look at that. Hey, look, my book sold $1 million worth. And you made 100,000. Okay, 100,000 isn't bad, but what if you made 700,000 on that same book? So you're going to give somebody $600,000 because you don't like the business aspect of it. And that is what boggles my mind. Because you creative, write a great story, you deserve the proceeds from that.
Well, and I think one of the things that independent publishers have to accept is that you are going to have to wear multiple hats, and that's part of what makes you agile and quick to react and able to survive in this marketplace. The traditional publisher, to your point, yeah, they can do a lot of that stuff, but they're just not going to be as adaptable as you can be. And the other thing that when I was thinking about the topic for this call was, after the conference, I reached out to some authors that are getting started and said, hey, I'm going to help you work through some stuff with ideas around the launch trough and planning that out. And the whole idea is to get some examples to share with people. And I put it out to the group, and I got a lot of response, people that wanted to do it. And then what happened is a lot of those people fell away. And I'm down to just a few that we're doing this. And the reason I tell you this is because I think that's indicative of what's going to happen out there in the space. Is if you're not prepared to kind of push yourself into an uncomfortable zone, or if life just keeps happening to you, which does happen, right? Like you're never going to be able to achieve those goals that you see other people achieving, right? And life happens. You can't stop that. But what a plan does is that, like, when you get back from whatever the drama was that happened, whether it was an illness or something happened in your family, like, it reminds you where you were to keep going forward, right? So it's really to protect you against two things. That is, from chasing butterflies, that creative part of you that wants to, like, oh, maybe I should go work on this book idea or this one or that one or this one. When you do get interrupted by that other stuff, get back to task. And then I think something that you're really, really good at and could probably help people a lot is setting a cadence, right? Now, your cadence is different than other people, right? Like, people look at you and they're like, this guy puts out 2 million words printed. That's your cadence. That's cool, right? Like, and you may be thinking, like, I could probably do 3 million. But for other people, it's like, okay, you got to start somewhere. Like, I'm going to walk around the block. Okay, I can't run a marathon like Craig, but today I'm going to walk around the block, and every day I'm going to walk around the block, and then maybe I can walk around 2 blocks. And I think that that's the other thing, is setting that cadence for what your business is going to do in 2018. And to that point, if you could kind of go back in the Wayback Machine and say, okay, back when you first started this, and set plans versus kind of where you are today, and what maybe changed in your planning and, like, goal setting.
I think that my initial setup was good, but I'd just come off over 7 years of business consulting. I've helped a number of small businesses start up, as well as major businesses work through their business plans. So I set up well to begin with, and I actually didn't even start my S Corp until I'd been doing it for a year, because there's no need. It was zero risk, and your business organization is based on risk tolerance. And I had no worries there that first year. So I looked at how many words I was writing per day. I worked that into a spreadsheet. I said, hey, looks like I can do this, because I will write while editing. I will write every single day. And I've got my, let me pull up my spreadsheet. I keep track of every single day. I am averaging 2,685 words for 836 days. So that comes out to 2.24 million words. But you look at 2,600 words. I mean, Joe, you go and you write, and if you have a good hour, that's 1,300 words.
Yeah.
In 2 hours, focused writing hours a day. And if you do that in 4 30-minute sessions or 8 15-minute sessions, however you break it up, whatever works for you, that comes out to a gazillion words. I mean, that's good math there, huh?
Yeah.
But so I'm down to 2,600 words. The last month, I haven't been writing a whole lot. I'm traveling down under for my son's wedding. I tried to focus on that, but on his wedding day, I still was able to write 2,000 words, because I had a great scene in my head and jammed before we met for breakfast that morning. The process, if you look at that, you look at your average book length, especially if you plan well enough to understand that it's a 70,000 word book. If you're writing 1,000 words a day, that's 70 days. That means you can write 280,000 words in a year.
Mm-hmm.
You get those. Now 1,000 words a day is 365,000. But looking at editing time and various breaks,
Sure.
That's 4 good, solid novels in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only 1,000 words a day. You can write 1,000 words in less than an hour if you're focused, and this is my writing time. Get in, here's the plot, here's the scene I have to develop. And you'll find that your walk around the block, you're making it in half the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're still walking that same block, but you're doing it in half the time. And now you're able to do a little bit more. Okay, let me read Brian Meek's book on AMS ads, because I've got a couple books up, and hey, let me help them get some visibility for minimal cost.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that extra time and that hour that you've carved out of each day, and you do that. and you get your 1,000 words a day. I think that the most important advice I could give anybody is write every single day. If you're a writer, write.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and having a plan for how you're going to write, right, I think is, and it doesn't have to be like a 20-page PowerPoint. This is like one sheet of paper. Each quarter, I'm going to put out, like what you just laid out. I'm going to put out book a quarter, right? And that means I'm going to write this many words per month, and kind of back into what you need to do. I was talking with Shane Silvers a couple days ago, and he's had some just spectacular launches this year. But there's been an enormous amount of planning that's gone into it. Now, he mentioned to me, like, when he sits down to write a book, it takes him about 3 weeks to write the book and get it edited, right? He's been doing this a while, and he's a super fast writer. Now, the reason I bring this story up is that where he's focused is on that, being that business person, right? And how that launch goes, right? And he's got great product, his stories, but what he's really been focused on and doing a fantastic job is really engaging with those fans and getting them to support that book. And that takes a lot of hours. I mean, the guy has been putting in a ton of time. But that was the plan, right? Like, he knew what he was, he knew the business he had chosen.
Yeah. Well, and he's incredibly successful.
Yes.
The revenue is very, very consistent and good.
Yes.
But it takes shifting hats. Write a great story, focus on that, and now do this other thing. And it helps to leapfrog in that you don't write the story and then now you've got a week and you're trying to put on a business hat and do a launch in a week. No, plan that two months from now.
And that gets to this whole concept of planning. So, like, if you're the kind of person that's sitting here listening and like, well, I've never written a plan myself, it's like you take out a sheet of paper, write out the 4 quarters, right? And with that, what do you want to achieve in that quarter? I want to get a book out. I want to get 2 books out, right? Then break those quarters into months and set some goals in those. And that's going to help you to understand what we've been talking about as far as like how much writing you need to do. But then you have to bake in what that launch looks like, right? And we've talked in past videos about, figuring out what those constraints are and setting that out. But if you don't have a plan to begin with, right, just a simple plan, you're at a competitive disadvantage in this marketplace.
And I'm a big fan of backward planning, and that's what you described.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to publish a book you're going to write 1,000 words a day, and your 70,000 word book, you're going to publish it in April. You pick a date and say, hey, I'm going to publish this. I wouldn't recommend doing a pre-order unless you know absolutely for sure that you're going to get done in time. Pick a date and then start backward planning. Okay, I need to write X amount of time. I need to bake in 2 weeks from my editor. She promised me in a week, but I'm going to give her 2 weeks. I'm going to deliver it on this date, and then keep going and stay on that track. At 1 month in, 2 months prior to launch, you start looking at what I need to do to launch this book, whether it's newsletter swaps, whether it's paid promotions, whatever it might be. And then like 1 month prior, you have better have 3/4 of that book written. If you're still a quarter of the way done, you're now gonna have to put on your artist hat, and you're gonna have to jam out a book fast. And too many people are up against a deadline. And all I know is in college, when I went, I was a little bit older. When I got the end of semester assignment at the beginning, I worked on it that first month to write it. And then I gave it to the professor 1 month after the semester started and said, hey, is this what you're thinking for the term paper? And so I'd get free feedback. Hey, no, here's this, go take this direction. And so when I turned it in, the lowest grade I ever got on a term paper was 97. So needless to say, I graduated in the top 1% of my college class. And that's the people who churn out their term papers on the night before it's due are the people who are challenged to achieve that level of success.
Yeah.
I actually graduated, I think, 58 out of a class of 40,000. It was a pretty big class. I'm sorry, 8,000 was my class. So 58, hey, not bad. And the first 45 were all honors students. So I didn't take honors classes because, hey, I was there for fun and to get my degree so I could go back in the Marine Corps as an officer. But and that's what you're doing. Are you a professional at this? Or are you just trying to get the piece of paper and say, I've published a book?
Mm-hmm.
If you're writing 10,000 words the last day before it's due to your editor, it might not be as good as it could be. And this is where quality over speed arguments come into place. Hey, how can you write a book in 3 weeks, a good book? Well, if you look at 3,000 words a day, you can write that in 3 hours. I'm in the chair 10 to 12 hours a day. What am I doing all that other time? I'm rereading. I'm looking at other stuff. I'm focusing. So when I do write, I'm focused on what I'm doing. So I believe I have good quality. My editor has commented repeatedly. She's edited almost 2 million words of mine, that your quality improves with each novel, and her job gets easier and easier. And she says, please don't make me irrelevant. So I'm like, no, I'll bake in a couple mistakes just to keep you happy. But it goes to, are you a professional at this job? If you're a professional, you'll do 1,000 words a day, and every single person who puts a book out and publishes it is a professional. So are you going to take it like a professional, or are you going to be one of those small businesses that crashes and burns over time because you had a good idea but never could put it into effect? And that's put it into production. Don't be doing that. 1,000 words a day. That means you write 1,000 words a day. If you get 2,000, great. You give yourself a cushion, but 1,000 words, hit that minimum every time, and you'll find that, hey, instead of 70 days to write my book, it took me 58. It gives me 12 extra days to reread, edit, tweak before it's due to my editor. And then you're going to find that you're going to give her or him a much, much better book.
Sure. Well, and the other thing, I think the folks coming out of the Vegas conference, there was a lot of inspiration to do rapid release. There was a lot of talk around that, collaboration. And once you start to try and implement some of those strategies, that requires planning, right? Like you just think, if you could share with like the difference between like Craig writing a few years ago and it was just you to what you're doing now. I mean, you've got, I know you got the Dark Landing series. You got the third book coming out
on the 23rd in 7 days.
Yeah. Yep. And like, if you could share, like, that was something you collaborated with somebody else. You had a strategy, like how you wanted that product to be delivered to the market. And, it required you guys to do, some front end loading. And so it's not lost on the audience. Like, that's not the only thing you're baking in the kitchen, right? Like, so.
Yeah. We actually have 6 full books written, and we haven't published the third because every 18 days, part of our mantra to the readership is every 18 days. You remember the speed limit signs that are 7 miles an hour. So odd numbers. I'm not going to say every 30 days. No, 18. I'm going to pick an odd number. And also that really dovetails nicely with Amazon's algorithm. So we can have 2 books sitting nicely in the hot new release category in the top 3 at every point in time. And that's what one of the things we're shooting for. So we've got that. But that's one of the things we did with that is I wrote the first book in entirety. I did a lot of world building. We did a spreadsheet with here's characters, here's some future character names. And Scott and I worked back and forth on that to build the world, which usually I would just take a journey through the world and introduce people to it as I go. But that's just me writing, and I couldn't do that because it's a collaboration. So we world built, but just enough so we could tell our stories. And then we added to that. We've got a Google spreadsheet that we just add stuff to as we go. Like, hey, here's a new character. Here's what he looks like. So if you reference him, this is how it is. The series with Michael Anderle, we know where we want to go with it, but those are more free flowing. Those are more me writing this story within his universe. And I have a great beta team that have read every book in the universe, all 140 or whatever it is. So they keep me honest in regards to those details. So that's more like I write it and I've got overseers to tweak things. So that actually is easier than the dark landing where we're coordinating and building the world as we're going based on an initial view of what the world looked like. I've got a collaboration on a standalone called The Human Experiment, and that is a science fiction, but it's a standalone. It's in the vein of a Heinlein or an Andre Norton standalone, where we take a subject and 60,000 word book. We're putting that. I'm doing that one with Kevin McLaughlin. I'm planning a series with Jonathan Brazee later this year, but in Michael Anderle's universe, in the Catharian Gambit universe. And that is going to be some good marine military sci-fi with a force doing combined arms assaults. And it's a lot of fun. Jonathan will be in London as well. And he's speaking on the value of professional organizations like SFWA, the Science Fiction Fantasy Writers of America. So what do you get out of those? The RWA, the Romance Writers of America. and why you should join them or why not. What's the right time? So that's where we are. I see you're wearing a heavy flannel shirt. Is it really that cold in Chicago?
Yeah. Well, since you decided to go gallivanting around the Pacific, I guess you sent our weather here, or your weather here, and I'm taking care of your beard that you usually would grow.
It's 31 degrees here right now. Okay.
It's single digits here.
Yeah, have a nice day. That's something we usually deal with, but I went outside this morning and rain was, water was dripping from my gutters. I'm like, what the hell? It's January. The average temperature in January is -10. We usually never get anywhere near melting. Last year we went 4 months straight without going above freezing. And now this year every month we've had days where it's been above freezing.
So I'm like, so we're, with that, like, so do you have some type of like master schedule that helps you to like you've got your work, you've got collaborative work, and how are you figuring all that out? Like, I'm sure you're not just writing it on the back of a Post-it note.
It is on a Post-it note.
It is. It must be a gigantic Post-it note.
Now, I used to plan so much better, but I've got so much going on with the conferences. With also, I manage the Age of Expansion for Michael Anderle, and we have 5 authors in there, and so I have to read through their stuff to make sure it jives, and that also takes a certain amount of time, and their delivery is scattered throughout each month. And so, oh, by the way, here, edit a 60,000 word book right in the middle while I'm trying to write mine. So I actually just have a bucket of what I want to accomplish, and I have delivered this year, as opposed to last year, I have delivered no dates. My next book of The Bad Company, I haven't even said, hey, here's what I'm looking for a publication date, because I don't want to give fans false hopes, because I don't know when I'm going to finish it. I really want to finish it before I leave for the London conference, which is January 31. It's the 17th today. So 14 days to write 50,000 words. I mean, it's not obtuse. I mean, I could do that, but I've got 3 or 4 books that I'll have to edit during that time from other people. In addition to the conference, as it gets closer to the conference, the time investment becomes much greater. So I'm shooting for that, and it's not pie in the sky thinking. I know what I'm capable of, but I just don't know. There's too many unknowns in regards to my time with these other things. So I hope I can publish that. I wanted to publish it a week before Valentine's Day, when Michael has a double release. So once again, planning. I have these other dates in there, but I have this bucket of stuff that needs to be done. I have a target that I want to hit, but I'm not so fanatical about hitting it this year like I was last year. And then I know what I'm going to do next. I'm doing my own Free Trader 7 because I promised the fans, and I didn't get it last year, and I hate breaking a promise. So Free Trader 7 is next after Bad Company 3, and my goal is to write that in 5 days. A 30,000 word. It's going to be shorter than the other ones, but I'm not going to do a lot of the the reiteration of the background, like you see in long running series. I'm just going to say, hey, here's the story, and really focus, like a James Patterson Hot Shot is Kill Shots, the very short $5 paperbacks that you can get at the checkout register at Barnes and Noble. So it's going to be in that style. It's going to be straightforward, tell a story. Here's the characters, and hopefully that will resonate for the last 3 books in that series. But that's all the more planning I'm doing this year is 2 to 3 months out.
Okay.
I'm only looking at writing about 750,000 words this year, maybe even less, as opposed to 1 million, which I did the last 2 years. Because of all the other things going on and giving back. 20 books to 50K as a Facebook group has a certain amount of time consuming. Is time consuming in its own way. Working with other people, I do get an awful lot of requests for help, and I do try to help out when people ask.
No, it's a lot of stuff, and I think with any that's writing and they're aspiring to build a business, they have to understand that as things scale up, they're going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And the way to kind of help yourself get through that is, get in the habit of planning, even if it is that simple, 1 page or stuff on a whiteboard or, Post-it notes. And I joke about this a lot. So my old business partner and I, when we used to sit down and plan out stuff, we did it on yellow Lego pad, and we would just write out the scratch pad stuff. Now, after that, we would go and make really fancy business presentations, right, with the PowerPoint deck, because we were raising money and we were talking to investors. But in the end, it was the scratch pad that drove that business, right? It was those 10 or 12 lines of here's the key points we got to hit. This is what the customer we're serving. This is how we're going to serve them. This is how we're going to do it. Here's the pieces we're going to break out and do. Now, did we put little nice graphics? Yeah, that was because that was part of the money raising piece. But in the end, having just a notebook to drive you is okay as long as you're using it, right? You're going and looking at that and it's stuck up next to your computer or your mirror in the morning when you get up to remind you of okay, I got to write that 1,000 words. It means I either get up early, stay late, whatever. I need to, go learn these things to be a better marketer or be a better business person. I need to start, I think a big thing that a lot of people learned at the conference was how they could work with others, right?
One of the things with your yellow legal pad, you've got it written down because people are intimidated by planning because they see these plans that have 1,000 sub-points. You only need your main point. I need to write a book in a quarter. And then, okay, that means 1,000 words a day, X. Okay, where am I at 30 days? And you have your gates, and oh, by the way, geez, I need 2 months out. As I tried to book an ad with eReader News today, and every time I book an ad with them, I find out, damn it, 30 days or less. If your promotion is after that, you can't. So I made a note on my calendar on January 28th, book ENT for February 28th. So you can go and you add that stuff as you go. You don't have to come up with a complete plan to begin with. You only have to have the skeleton, that legal pad, that 1 page, and then just keep adding to it. You can break down tasks by day or whatever works for you, but you've got to have that main bare bones. You've got to have that 1 page from which all else will derive.
Well, this gets back to what I started with in reaching out to help authors plan, to get this information. The exercise of going out and asking those people was in itself an experiment for me, right? So I go and I ask a group of how many people are in 20 books for 50?
16.4 thousand.
Okay, so 16,000. So out of that group, I had about 10 that would take my free help. Okay. So and then out of that, a bunch just, for lack of a better term, kind of flaked out, right? They had other things that were more important than taking some time to just write that plan. So the point is, I'm not trying to pick on anybody. My point of that story is to say, like, if you do what we just said, you take a piece of paper and write out Q1, 2, 3, 4, what's going to happen in those, and then below that, the months, the subpoints, you are in the top 1% of this industry as far as planning.
It's not that hard to set yourself apart and think of the launch. You're throwing your product, not your baby anymore.
Yeah.
You're throwing your product into this amorphous blob of a million other books. How does yours stand out? Mine stands out because I've got promotions booked. I've got whatever. You're giving yourself a chance to win as opposed to strapping on the anchors and running for the ocean.
Yep. Great. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of touch on? I think that's really it. Get a simple plan quarterly and monthly, words written, and books launched. I mean, if you have that on a sheet of paper next to your computer reminding you it's going to be a completely different 2018, and it's going to help you to set that cadence, not chase butterflies, and get back to your business when life happens.
And a cautionary note, make sure your goals and your plans are what you can control, what the number of words you write in a day. Oh, I need to make $10,000 in the month of March. No, don't put that as a goal because you can't control that. You can influence the hell out of that, but you can't control that. Whether people buy your book or not, because in September of 2001, if you said, I'm going to kill it in the stock market and you're getting ready to invest on 9/10, 2001, you may have some serious issues, and that's all out of your control. So what you can do is you can write words a day. You can reserve an editor. You can get your cover ordered. You can start working on your blurb. You can get your coordination of a launch setup. That's all in your control. So control what you can control, and you'll see how much you can influence the stuff that you can't control. So you'll benefit from just thinking about the days between now and your book launch. Cool.
Well, why don't we leave it there, and you can get back to writing your 2,600 words today.
That's right. That's it, man. Just got to hit that number. Actually, I need more like 5,000, but that's only so I can relax during the London conference because my book is done. So that's what we're shooting for, man.
It was good talking to you again.
Hey, thanks a lot, Joe. Peace, man.
Right. Later.